We're live again. Hello, everybody. It's Friday night. This is Eileen Pifanio. Bernadine LeBlanc is in the wings, and we are going to do a redo of last week's, I don't even want to know, communication breakdown is what it was, okay? It's, seriously, I mean, we're trying new stuff over here. Joe's going on Spreaker. We just got picked up by iHeartRadio. We, meaning UPRN. So, I mean, we're like, we got through that first half hour, but as soon as it was Skype time, it was like, forget it.
Technical difficulties
Serious,
from
yeah,
hell.
Please stand by, And so people probably heard us live going, what the hell? What are we doing? But anyway, we survived it. We can take that stuff in stride because I actually do have a sense of humor, contrary to what people may say. Now, anyway, we're back. This is the Supernatural Substation. And because we didn't get to interview him last week, we asked our guest, Bernadine asked our guest, David Bennett, to return. So he'll be giving us a call around 9:30. He'll be joining us, and we'll learn all about his near-death experience. Man died 3 times, and I think we should talk to him, and see what happened and what it was. So the other thing you guys missed, and he's in the background. It's Zeke. Yeah, he was pissed last week because he didn't get to be part of the fiasco. So I was like, hey,
your dog did though.
Actually, yeah, and the dogs did, and but actually, Zeke came out all right because he wasn't associated with the, the communication breakdown that we had. Dogs are secured. They're actually in the room with me, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, last week we were talking. In keeping with the subject matter of our guests, we were talking with each other about near-death experiences, and because obviously that's what Mr. Bennett is an expert in. And I can't remember. We were really good too. I can't remember everything I said. We were talking about, I don't know, what visions that you have or what you see when you're dying was one of the subjects we were talking about. And I think
people in hospice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, I mean, so somebody who died, right?
And I know what your dad seen.
Yes, yeah, my dad. Yeah, I remember. Well, isn't that amazing? I remember. Okay.
Well, good.
In some other corner of quantum reality, I don't know. Somebody's there. I can't remember. It's my double goer. Anyway, yeah, so we were talking about the experience of death. And I think I remember saying about, the closer you get to it, the more intimidating it becomes. I don't know if you're experiencing that, but I mean, I have faith. I have practical experience in encountering spirits of the living who have passed on and, become ghosts or revenants or whatever. So I know it's real. It's just that there's that little gray area of, the idea of passing over. It's probably the scariest thing on earth, So, and I know my dad was scared. He died. Hang on. Gotta hydrate because I'm a middle-aged woman who's drying up. Anyway, so yeah, he died in November 2015. And what I was saying was, even before he got sick for that, for what put him in the hospital, he was in the hospital for a month. He used to say that he would see a little girl. And he told Amanda, my daughter, not me, she told me that the little girl that he had seen, he had seen her several times. And then the most recent at the time he was talking, she had come in his bedroom and sat on his bed and told him he was going to die. And we were kind of like perplexed by, who is this little girl? Was it good? Was it bad? He didn't seem to be scared about it. And then not long after that happened, I passed the door of his room and he was sitting there laughing and talking with nothing. And he was not looking like up because he was sitting in his chair. He was looking at eye level with something small. And it dawned on me after all that was done and after he passed and everything, that he had a sister who died before him. She was still in a high chair, so she was a toddler, and the high chair had fallen, and she hit her head, and then 2 weeks later she died of an injury to the brain. I mean, we're talking in the 1920s, so nobody knew a lot of what to look for and everything. So I honestly think that that's his sister, coming in that kind of comforting form. you know I think she has probably been with him to guide him and everything. I hope so. Honestly, he wasn't afraid of it. He said he didn't want to see ghosts, and he wasn't afraid of it at all.
How old was she when she passed?
She was a toddler. She was like,
Okay.
the picture I have of her, she was probably, she was probably 2. I can't recall exactly, but she, actually, it wasn't his, it was his younger sister. I'm thinking, he was already born. So Isabel, her name was Isabel, and she would have been his younger sister. So she's smaller than him. So I honestly think, that we grow, that maybe, on the other side, we continue to grow, our spirit continues to grow. But, whenever people, who are near death, and have the experience of relatives coming back to them, they seem to say, and we can talk about this with Mr. Bennett, that they see these spirits in the prime of their life. So, in other words, my dad was 88 years old. If he was to, for some reason, visit me or appear to me, he would look more like my younger dad. He would look kind of in the prime of his life, and the best time, the healthiest that we were. And, that's been put out there a couple of times, that is, we are restored to health. And in fact, it's suggested that our bodies on the other side are as substantial as we feel them here. We can touch and feel them, but we're in spirit, on the other side. So it sounds great, but I don't want to go there anytime soon.
Well, I've also heard that, like, if you lose a leg, a limb, that when they've seen the apparition of their loved one, that their limb was back.
Yeah, they're
Or
restored.
if they were blind, they weren't blind when they seen them. They looked like they could see,
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever their disability was, they didn't have it anymore.
Right. That's true. That I've heard that as well. So you've gotta wonder. I mean, there are more and more and more, and there are millions of people over, generations that have had encounters like this. And I was talking about, I had an aunt, Aunt Louise, and whenever anyone in the family was sick, she always went to nurse them. She would sit with them, and see to their needs and everything. I mean, she really was there for everyone. And another, cousin of mine, well, he's more my dad's age, but he's one of those like second cousins, and he was passing away, and he was kind of like semi-comatose, but he woke up and he said, "I'm not ready. No, Louise, I'm not ready." Now he was in ICU, and his daughter happened to be sitting there, and she just broke out in tears when she told us, that he said that even though he didn't say, "Hey, I saw her," because he really couldn't speak to anyone else, he actually said, "I'm not ready. I don't want to go." The next day, he saw her again, and he said, "Louise," and then he said his dad's name, or he called his dad, and then he passed. So, I mean, it's something that happens. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing these days, though, are like Mr. Bennett and like Daniel, that and there are other people who have had near-death experiences and now have returned with unusual gifts that they didn't have, right? I
Right.
mean, like gifts of foresight.
Insight, yeah,
Mhm.
psychic abilities,
And it's not
healing.
right, healing. And it's not everyone, but it's a good number of people who
Right.
experience this, and then suddenly, and not everyone that experiences it actually likes it, because suddenly, you know, they're in people's thoughts. They're seeing things that are about to happen. And it can't be good to go from an or just an unopen life to suddenly you're open to all this. And as Mr. Bennett calls it, a transformative experience. I guess so. You know, I mean, in your instance, Daniel was, I guess you would say he had to get it under control, right? Because he was wanting to read
Right.
everybody came
He
back.
he's still like that. I have to calm him down sometime. I'm like, look, you can't be in psychic mode all the time because
Hmm.
it actually takes a toll on your body. Like
Yeah.
it'll weaken your heart because your third eye stays open in psychic mode all the time. And the danger of that is
Mhm.
spirits channeling through you.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
And staying right.
right. So you,
And
you
I,
have to shut it down. You have to learn how to shut it down.
mhm. No, he's the real deal. Because the first time, I think it was the first time we met, and I was at your house, and we were going to Lake Charles, I think, the next day or something, and he told me that there was a woman with me, and he described my mother basically to a T. And I didn't ask him to, but he and I didn't tell him, and he doesn't know me at all. He doesn't know, but he described the giveaway was when he described her glasses, because my mom, my mom would never get new glasses. Well, actually, late in life, later she got new ones, but I was like, we would tell her, we know you can't see out of those glasses, because she'd have to take them off to see. But they were
Oh,
like they were. I'll show you a picture one time. They were a mother of pearl frame. So I mean, I guess she liked them. They did, they looked nice on her for the time and all, but that is how I remember her, with those on. And you'll see there are pictures of her with them on and with them not. And so when he hit that, I was like, yep, whatever happened to you on the other side, that's a real deal. So I said,
yeah.
well, would you tell her to go and, guardian angel my daughter, was because she was in the Navy in Italy, or in
Hmm.
Europe. I was like, yeah, she shouldn't be here. Tell her to go be with Amanda. I don't need that. So, but it's
Spirits know
weird.
who can see them and who
Hmm.
can't, and
Yeah.
that's what they use if they need to send a message across or
Hmm.
let you know that they're with you. They'll go
Hmm.
through that person that will tell you. And Danny's
Yeah.
the type,
Yeah.
he's not gonna not tell you. He can't. He's just
Hmm.
he can't. As much
Yeah.
as I try without choking him, I'm like, look, sometimes you just cannot say certain things to certain people.
Yeah.
And to
It's
him,
they.
it's a message everybody needs to know right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. That's a double-edged sword, with him. I think. Um, but you're right. He does need to shut it down and recharge. And there are not, I mean, not everybody's like us. Like, there are a lot of people who would be scared, if they were told that spirits were hanging around, even if it's spirits they knew. Then there are some that would be angry because they think that, there's the spirit of their loved ones went to heaven, and is not going to come back here to visit. So it's all kind of things. And the
Right.
thing is that mediums, psychic people, don't ask for that. They don't ask for that gift. So you got to be a little bit forgiving, because especially someone who comes to it late in life, like these near-death experience, individuals who come back with amazing abilities.
They
So,
come
but
back
the
for a reason.
Yeah, and in most cases they really wanted to die, and then it's almost as if they were sent back.
Well,
And
Daniel did because the first time he died, it was a suicide.
right, he was hurting, and God, I mean, I'm not presuming to say, but I think he showed him, not only is it real on the other side, I'm gonna send you back, to
Hmm.
the real world, and you're gonna be in touch. You're gonna see spirit reality, which I think is, in a way, it's a gift from God, to be able to be sure of that. The other thing that we had mentioned that we were talking about were people in hospice and visions of the dead, and or visions, I'm sorry, of people who had gone on, or visions of places. And I was talking about a friend of mine who on Facebook who messaged me that his wife's father was at their house and he was in a hospice care situation, and he had visually seen, he had they have a camera set up so as not to disturb him, by going in there continuously. They had put a camera up, and he had captured orb activity on the camera. And we'll revisit this because orbs are not always dust. Not all orbs are ghosts or spirit energy, but you cannot dismiss orbs and say that none of them are spirit energy. That it's always, I mean, people are really rabid about this, and I don't know where the change came from. Everything was orbs, 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 and then suddenly, there's even a T-shirt. Who was it? Keith Age has a T-shirt with a gun on it, saying, "Go ahead, say orbs again." You know, it's wrong to dismiss it, because if you know anything about occult reality or occult tradition, those are spirits. Not every single one of them, but spirits, larval spirits, basically, who feed on decay and feed on death, and also are growing into other types of elemental spirits and other spirits. They travel in that form. And so you cannot dismiss these out of hand. You have to really look and really examine the situation, what it is, what it's doing. Well, Alan, who's the friend of mine, he had caught an orb that was basically, it didn't just go past the front of the camera. It was almost like it was circling and then going back, and each time it would get closer. So he asked me, "Is this a bug? Is this?" And it really wasn't. It was this flickering sort of energy light. And he said, "That's wild." I said, "Well, what it is he is in a hospice situation. He's basically got one foot, in the spirit world already." And in his case, and I read something about hospice care where they've already kind of detached from their body even before the end. It's almost like they kind of go in and out, and they have visions of the family members and the people, then they come back in to where, you can interact with them. But at some point they get totally unresponsive, not dead or comatose, but they're unresponsive and they seem to be sleeping. And that's when, it's said that they are mostly passing, then they are like 2 feet in the other side, but they haven't passed yet. So I think it's like an understanding of what's going on.
The
And
transition.
yeah, and that if there's a presence of spirits nearby, that they are helping that understanding. It's not unusual for them to wake up and be interactive and, and even eat and stuff, and then the very next day they pass away. And they really don't recall that they're in and out of the spirit realm, but their spirit has been interacting already with, its next home, or its first home is really what it is, because we're all spirit first. So, and so I told him, I said, yeah, he wasn't afraid, he was just fascinated. He was fascinated by it, and I said, yeah, it's true, and you can't dismiss all of this. I mean, yourself, dust is easy to identify.
Yeah.
Dust and other particles and stuff, right? I mean,
A spirit orb is more intelligent, has a destination. It knows where it's going.
mm-hmm.
And you can tell it'll stop in midair and just, circle around and then go up one way, go in through a doorway, come out through the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
It'll
follow people. And,
right. It knows what it's doing. It's intelligent. So,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I believe that spirit energy, they travel in balls of light, and some
Mm-hmm.
people can see them as apparitions. Some
Mm-hmm.
people can't. Like when my grandmother, she would see spirits, she would tell me where the spirit was in her house. I'd take a photograph of that exact place. She says, "Oh, I see a cherub on top of my refrigerator. It's just
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, smiling." I'll take a picture and I get a huge, perfect circle orb. Plus, we get all kinds of activity on our devices at the same exact time she's saying all those things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to look at all the different types of evidence when you're analyzing.
Yeah, you cannot dismiss that, you know. Um, it existed in that form before anybody started investigating it, right?
Right.
It's been
And
recorded.
some people see it with their own eyes.
Well, that's what I was about to say. It's been recorded by occultists and practitioners for generations, and way before cameras and anything else, you know, anything approaching a recording device was ever thought of. I mean, it wasn't even, you know, it wasn't even a star in, you know, in somebody's mind. I'm
Right.
talking about in ancient times
Yeah.
that it has been described in occultists throughout. Usually what, I mean, if you're good at your practice, then you're recording what you're experiencing for other people, you know, who come, and if you know certain rituals work, and then you're going to record how you did it, you know, unless you completely want to be secretive or whatever, like you're trying to raise the dead. But there's enough evidence, material, you know, support of the idea of, you know, these types of spirits. And you know, if we always talk about them, you can see them sometimes with the naked eye. I had a really dramatic experience at night at Holt Cemetery, which we've talked about a lot, which, you know, is the voodoo cemetery that's in Mid City in New Orleans. And I was waiting just for my daughter to come out of a class, so I took a picture, and I took a picture, okay, and then I took another picture, and I saw, as the flash went off, I saw in front of the camera orbs like crazy. So I took another picture, and then they weren't there. And that's about the time when I was like, okay, you guys don't want to be photographed. I'm cool with that. But nobody's going to tell me that they don't exist or that everything's dust, because it's simply
Right.
not true. And
I've seen like a basketball size one in my
mhm,
doorway.
mhm,
I don't know if I told you the story. I was laying in my bed about 15 years ago when I had my dog Ozzy, and
mm,
Shane was offshore. So I was laying in my bed reading a book, and he'd sleep at the foot of my bed. Well, he raised his head and growled, and I put my book down to see what he was growling at, because we were the only two in the house. And
mhm,
in the middle of my doorway, like
yep,
not on a surface area, in the middle, just midair, it was like basketball size. Just it was a perfect
just
orb.
hovering.
Just it looked like it had like swirling type stuff in it,
Right.
white.
Yeah.
And so I put my book back up. Ozzy put his head back down, so I peeked out again, and it was gone.
Yep. Forget
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Hi,
You
you've
know.
reached the phone of David Bennett. I'm not
Uh-oh.
available to take your
Uh-oh.
call right
He's calling us. Joe said he's calling us. Guest calling.
Okay.
Joe, I don't. We heard the answering machine. Anyway, what I was going to say, yeah, is there are in, you know, a lot of books from the British Society of Psychical Research. There are hundreds and hundreds. He was Skyping, so he called him back. Okay, David will be with us in a minute, but to finish up, the people talked about these things floating into the air and floating through the walls, and I mean, again, in a time like the end of the 19th century and all that, when nobody had any ideas about UFOs and aliens, etc. So, Mr. Bennett, I think our guest is with us. Mr. Bennett, are you on the line?
now. Yes, I am.
Hey.
Hi.
Good. We're
It
so
worked
glad
this
to
week,
have
right?
you. Yeah, we're here. Yeah, because we've got our handy dandy Joe at the command over there. So he solved all the problems. So Skype is working. I'm Eileen Pastanio, and Bernadine is in the background here, and I'd just like to welcome you to our show. We were just talking about the same kind of things, near-death experiences and etc. Bernadine, you want to go ahead and introduce?
Okay. David Bennett is a public speaker, author, energetic healer, and transformational life coach. He's appeared on radio and television, including on The Story of God with Morgan Freeman, Dr. Oz, Angels Among Us, NBC National News, and PBS. Author of Voyage of Purpose and A Voice as Old as Time.
There you go.
There you go.
Wow.
Who's that guy, huh?
Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was looking up to learn a little bit more about you, and I even used your phrase just a few minutes ago because you talk about these experiences that you have as transformative experiences. So, and apparently you've died and come back 3 times. So I really want to know about that because what I was telling Bernadine is like the closer we get to, checking out, getting a little bit more. Like I want to go to the back of the line. I'm not ready for that. And it's a real comfort if somebody like you could tell us what to expect.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. People that have died and come back, they no longer fear it. It's because it's that unknown. We always fear the unknown. But once you've been there, it's kind of like you've already, toured the school before you went, and so you're not as afraid when you get there. But my experience was my first experience was a drowning out to sea. It was in really rough sea, and I was thrown overboard, and I drowned. And I first found myself in this absolute darkness, which sometimes can scare a number of people if they find themselves there. But I had died a very violent death, and I found the darkness is kind of comforting because I was no longer in that raging sea and stuff like that. So that darkness felt kind of soothing and comforting to me. But to some people, that darkness can be absolutely frightening. But from there, then the light showed up, and I moved into the light. And as I moved into the light, I saw what I call my soul family, and they appeared to me as light beings. And as I went into the light, I saw that I was transforming into a light being myself, which was really cool. But
and how was that happening? I mean, like you saw your body, your spirit body.
Yeah. I saw my spirit. I left my physical body kind of in that darkness, and as I moved into the light, I became a fragment of the light. And all my soul families, they were light beings as well, but I could recognize their eyes. That really stood out for me, and I recognized them as family. And some of them I'd lived in this life with, but not all of them. In fact, most of them hadn't lived in this life with me, but they participate in this life with me in being guides and helping me, and that sort of thing. But I wasn't aware of that before the near-death experience. After the near-death experience, they wanted to continue the communication, which freaked me out because I was an engineer and I didn't know anything about all this. And suddenly you're thrust into this world of, to me, everything was black and white before my experience. And then afterwards, it just, I was exposed to so much more. It totally changed my worldview of how things are, because it expanded my reality so much. But because they do want to communicate with us. Our soul families, our deceased loved ones, they do want to help us. They're there to help us, and we don't realize that a lot.
Yeah.
Life.
So they're guiding us, and they're also sometimes saving us. And it's interesting to me. I read that you had died first time by drowning in Hawaii. I think you were. Well, a friend of mine, 10 years ago now, he died drowning on a Memorial Day weekend. And he was a person that didn't take time for spiritual things. It wasn't that he was unspiritual, but I always have wondered what happened to him because he was a good swimmer. The lake was a little rough. He had jumped in to try and help his wife who was slipping off of a jet ski, and he never came back up. So the darkness was that was that where you were when you stopped fighting? Because I know that you must have been fighting to breathe and fighting to live, and and then suddenly you just kind of gave into it.
Yeah, I was a commercial diver at the
Ah,
time, so really good swimmer,
yeah.
and and very accustomed to being in the water.
Hmm.
And this was at nighttime. When I had my accident, it was at nighttime. So and we were 2 miles off the California coast, so there's no street lights out there. It's black, and but the darkness that I'm describing is outside of this time, outside of this reality, and it was it was when I finally it's kind of like a release. It's when you let go, um, like you said, when you quit fighting. Because I've been in some really close calls as a commercial diver, so I don't freak out when things are bad. But I knew I was getting close to the end of my air because I was starting to feel the symptoms of oxygen deprivation, that sort of thing. And because we're trained as commercial divers, we're trained to recognize that sort of thing. And so I recognized that it was coming, that eventually the euphoria was going to start overtaking me, and I'd probably breathe salt water.
Right.
And so but it's kind of strange. There's kind of a peace that comes over you when you with that, in that drowning kind of state, where you just say, this is okay. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And you release, you let go. And it's a really liberating kind of feeling. So when I went into the darkness, it was, when I left my body and I found myself in this absolute darkness, and you could tell it was something different because I no longer could hear the roaring sea, because you listen to the sea when it's at 25 to 30 foot state, it's loud. And I was being tumbled and tossed, and suddenly it's peaceful, it's calm, it's I'm no longer freezing. The water was very cold that night.
Wow.
And so I'm comfortable. But not only that, but there was a perception that there was so much more. That inside that darkness it was like absolutely nothing that contained absolutely everything. And that type of concept is really hard to portray or to describe in a way that people can understand. It felt like everything was possible in that darkness. It was rich, it was vast, and so I was very curious. I was really curious. I was like, not in Kansas anymore. What's going on? And so when the light showed up, my curiosity I just like moth to the flame. I had to go see what it was all about.
Right. And so, and obviously you came back, but did you want to stay? A lot of people who have those near-death experiences want to stay in the light. They feel the warmth. They feel, their mind completely open, and they feel love. Did you want to stay there? And then what made you come back to us, to physical reality?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely wanted to stay. I felt the love from the soul family like I'd never, ever been loved before. I mean, we don't appreciate how much we're loved. When we're walking around this earth, we don't even recognize or understand how much love there is for us. And so you experience this unconditional, profound love in the light, and you have a soul family that's there to support you. And I mean, it's like they're a part of you. And so, and then I had a life review and saw the good, the bad, the ugly, but also saw the things that I'd done right in life, so that impressed me quite a bit. But then I got to a certain point where I was actually seeing my future. I actually saw part of my future in my life review. And then the light, this infinite, expansive consciousness of all the beings that ever were and all the beings that ever will be spoke to me, and it was like in unison. So this grand voice spoke to me and it said, "This is not your time. You must return."
Mm.
And I said, "No way." I
I
said,
don't
"No
want to
way.
go
I'm gonna."
back.
No, I've got a family here that loves me like I've never known before. I've never known that type of love, and I'm supported, and I know that my body is broken and it's in that cold ocean, and I don't want to go back there, And 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 I perceive that light as God, pretty much. Spoke to me one more time, and it said, "You must return. You have a purpose." And that word "purpose" just resonated. I mean, it really resonated into my being. And with that, because when you're in that light, you have this expanded consciousness. You know you're connected to everything. So when that word "purpose" resonated, into me, I understood it. And with understanding, I immediately went to acceptance. And as soon as I accepted it, I found myself outside my body. And I was watching it while it was still being tumbled and tossed in the ocean. And there was a bit of a miraculous resuscitation, because the ocean actually threw me up against some of the wreckage, which pushed some of the salt water out of my lungs. And that's when my soul family helped me come back to my body.
Mm-hmm. How long did this take? Like the duration of it? From the time.
I was under the water. The guys were looking for me. I was gone anywhere from, because time slows down and it's hard to judge time. So they estimated between 15 to 18 minutes I was gone.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, you must seriously have had a purpose. Definitely.
Well,
so
and
Dean,
you come back
I'm
and you start to question all that. It's like, whoa, what was that?
And you had did you not believe in any of that? Or was it like you heard about it maybe through religion or something when you were young and you just hadn't, you kind of drifted away from it? Well, I don't know.
It's kind of funny. My mom was an atheist, and I was thrown around as a young man from one family to another in my childhood, because my mom was a single mom, and she working full time to try to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lived with all these other people, and they all had different belief systems. They were all in different types of churches and different types of religions and things like that. So I saw how all these different religions affected these different people, but I didn't see where it really benefited them.
Mm-hmm.
So I hadn't adopted. Up until I was an engineer, pretty much science and technology was my life. I really didn't have a religion until I had this near-death experience.
Wow.
But I'd been exposed as a kid. I was really fortunate at the age of 14, my family moved out to Arizona, and we were in a really small town just outside Sedona, and I fell in with a lot of the Hopi and Navajo kids that were in the valley with us there, and so and they saw how dysfunctional my family was, and so the grandmothers kind of adopted me and shared some of their spirituality with me when I was 14, taught me how to go to my sacred space. So I knew how to meditate and stuff at a very early age. And so after the near-death experience, that was the only thing that felt real to me. So I went and I explored, that. It's kind of funny when you come back, you want to find out what was that all about. At least my mind did, and a number of experiencers that I work with, they've kind of gone through the same thing. You have this voracious appetite to read and to find more information about what you went through and to connect with others. And so I explored my, that Native American exposure that I was, and then I found the parallels between that and Buddhism and stuff like that. And then I started looking for the spirituality in all different belief systems, because it's there. Sometimes we have to dig through some of the dogma and stuff to get there, but it's in there, And so if you look at my library today, you'd see that it has books from all different beliefs.
Mm. Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple. We'll have a couple of questions on each of your experiences, but going back to your drowning, whenever you had seen the white light and you seen your soul family, when you seen your soul family, did you see like a ground, buildings, or was it just like flat, nothing but them in a circle?
Yeah, where I saw we went into this like sphere. It was like a circular enclosure within the light, and it went just like a sphere, all in all different directions. So when we were experiencing the life review, because when we go through the life review, it wasn't so much like watching a movie. It was like reliving the life, only you got to see it through everyone that you've ever interacted with through their perception. So it's like your consciousness fragmented into these multiple streams of consciousness, and all of your actions and interactions with these people created these ripples that expanded throughout the sphere and actually went out beyond the sphere into the light and into all the rest of the beings that were connected to this, to this experience, to your life experience.
And did you feel emotion with all of that?
Yeah, you do, because I was a pretty brash young man, to say the least. And so I got to see how some of my aggressive times and, as a youth and things like that, how I'd hurt people. And I was ashamed that my soul, because not only was I re-experiencing my life in the way that I just described, but my soul family was also experiencing it in the same way. So I was kind of ashamed that they had to experience some of the more unsavory parts of my life leading up to that experience. And
oh my gosh, my soul family's gonna be shaking their head and tapping their feet.
I was thinking the same thing. I wanted to say, oh my
right?
God.
Yeah. I mean, that alone is going to make you change your life. That's transformational right there, when you start thinking that way, like, oh my gosh, and
it's gonna be a
but the
double
funny
feature.
thing is but I was judging it, but my soul family wasn't. They were just loving me and supporting me through the whole thing.
Mm.
So, there's the redemption,
So the judgment was on yourself.
Yes, I brought the judgment. It was very shocking to me. Yeah. There was judgment there, but it was what I had brought to the table,
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that what I was experiencing is, I think death is a process. I think that we have to shed our earthly measures, our earthly being, and there's so, we weave this life together. It takes a little unweaving when we depart. And I think that this whole life review and the meeting and the greeting and the introduction to God and all of that is a lot of times our way of letting go of this life so that we can then be pure again. We can be whole.
Well, I've heard that when you die, that the bad things of the person that died, when you get into your soul body, that the bad things on earth, they kind of wipe the slate, from that, so that everything in heaven will be happy.
Yeah, I could see that, because I really do believe that that was kind of what was happening with me, because they were loving me and supporting me while I, re-experienced this, but I was also letting go of all of that at the same time. Mm-hmm. That I had done a lot of that stuff. But when you come back to this life and you have full recall of what you just experienced, you kind of start going, what was that? And man, I gotta clean up my act,
And so
it's not like you can change the past. You can't change the past.
So
no, but you can.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, the thing that I came back with that really helped me to deal with that was because I was 26 when I had the experience. So I was I there were three things. I called it acceptance, tolerance, and truth. Um, and the acceptance was acceptance of this is who I am right here, right now, but I can work on it and I can be a better person. And then tolerance was the tolerance of other people and life situations that we find ourselves. That we can be tolerant because we know we can change and that things are always changing. And so you become a little more, you become stronger and more adaptable because of acceptance, that you can accept that this is just the way it is right here, right now. These people are in my life. They may be causing some grief in my life, or I may not be happy with the situation that I find myself in, but but I know life is always fluid. It's always changing, and that I can, if I work in a positive way, I can make changes. So acceptance of myself, tolerance of others and situations, and then my own personal truth. And this was a little harder for my little engineer brain to get around, but we all have our own personal truth. Besides the factual type of truth, the black and white stuff that we learn in books and things like that, we also have a personal truth that comes from our own personal experience. You know, the three of us could have a shared experience, and each and every one of us is going to, from that experience, develop our own personal truth. And when we come across one of our truths, it resonates within our being. We have receptors within us, you know, not only our mind, but we also have our heart and we also have our gut. There's a set of ganglia in our gut that actually communicates with our nervous system. And so, you know, when we start to listen to not just our mind, but our heart and our gut, then we're starting to pay more, we're expanding our awareness and we're listening more to, you know, more of our personal truths and our personal, you know, ideals, that sort of thing. So that helped me to kind of accept what I had experienced in that experience. The rest of it kind of scared me, to tell you the truth. You know, meeting God, arguing with God, losing the argument,
Yeah.
meeting my soul family, all that kind of stuff. It was a little, because I tried to share it with my first wife, and that didn't go very well.
I'm sorry.
And so I didn't feel like I could share it with her. And then the guys on the ship that because I was the chief engineer of this research vessel, and we did underwater exploration, which was really dangerous work back in the 80s. And so we put each other's lives in each other's hands every day. So death was kind of a taboo subject. So I really felt isolated. I didn't feel like I could share this experience with anybody after I tried to share it with my first wife and got a really bad reaction.
I'm sorry. I have an ex too, and he just wouldn't get it either. Just thinking that, he didn't get it anyway. But so you moved on, and along you went, and then it happens again, right?
Yeah.
How,
Well, and the funny thing is you get these gifts that come along with it, you know, gifts and sensitivities. It's kind of funny. A number of experiencers will come back being sensitive to light, to sound, to just environmental conditions, things like that. They'll be sensitive, hypersensitive, and and even like medicine. Like I take very little medicine. When I do, I try to take like pediatric doses because I don't know, my body just has become so sensitive.
really?
And a number of experiences, but also heightened sensitivities, I was getting these downloads of information that I had no way of knowing. And so, as a good little engineer, I would test it. You know, I would to see if it was real, if it was veridical, if it was something that I could actually use. And the more as time went on, I got to see how reliable the information I was getting was. And I began to rely on it. But it was around then that 11 years later that I had my second experience, and
Well,
that's when I decided I really needed to accept everything from the experience, not just the acceptance, tolerance, and truth, because I got to see even more in the next
what
experience.
was your second experience?
The second experience wasn't really a near death experience, but because you don't have to die to have these experiences, I was actually with a spiritual group. I'd quit my life at sea and I became the manager of dialysis programs, and I was taking a vacation with the spiritual group back to Sedona, which is, my old stomping grounds. And they invited us to go meditate for a little while. So I went up and I went to my sacred space. And while I was there, the light spoke to me and it said, "Return to the light."
Mm.
And I found myself going back through the darkness, back into the light, and having another life reveal. Only this time I'd lived 11 more years.
Mm.
And in this 11 years, I saw how much that first experience was like a seed of transformation that was planted in my being. And I really didn't nurture it well. I did take, the acceptance, tolerance, and truth, and I worked with that, and I worked with this knowing that I was receiving. But there were other things that I got, because when I first came back, I could see the light, other people's light in their eyes. I could see their being, in their eyes.
Wow.
And things like that really, really frightened me. And I shut it down. I could see auras. Really freaked me out. Because
Wow.
the day before the experience, I couldn't see auras, and suddenly I'm seeing auras and I'm seeing people's spirit. And really, it was a little freaky, and it also felt invasive to me because I didn't have permission to look into somebody's soul, and so to be able to do that, it felt very invasive to me. So I really shut it down. When I had the second experience, I saw how much I'd changed. I didn't think I'd changed at all, but actually I did change quite a bit just by adopting, acceptance and tolerance and truth, and working with intuitive knowing. I had changed a lot, and my interactions were a little more, heart-centered, things like that. And so that's when I recognized I really have to adopt the whole package, this whole experience, and not be afraid to be open about it. And I was very fortunate because at that time, now 11 years later, I met a couple experiencers that became my mentors, and they helped me to recognize that I'm not the only one that has these experiences, and and that I don't need to shut it down. I can live with it and work with it, and work toward integrating these experiences into my life.
Dean?
Wow. Well, that's a lot to take in. So the second time you came back to see auras. So if you came across a person that had a dark aura, did you feel that was a negative person?
It's interesting, we have these outer bodies that you can perceive them. It just takes a little practice. It's just like going to the gym and exercising. If you practice, anybody can perceive auras. But auras are really great indicators as to if people are vibrating at the same level you are. I don't like to use terms negative and positive so much because I just believe things are, we just, what is, and so I try to stay away from the negative and the positive. I just understand that there are people that are healthy for me and people that aren't healthy for me.
Well, that's part of using your gut, because without seeing an aura, you can feel like if a person is a psychic vampire that's going to just drain your soul. with
Oh yeah,
negativity.
and they're out there.
So to
Mm-hmm.
be able to
Yeah.
see their aura, would you know ahead of time before your gut feeling if you've seen it?
Yes, yes. Um, Immediately, I don't see it so much as gray. Um, I just see, like this porosity in their aura that it's not whole, it's not complete, and so it's a little different for me. But that's my perception. It's not the same for everybody. But your gut and your heart are really good indicator. We need to listen to them more, because they do tell you. Because people that are not good for you are projecting a different types of vibration that you're going to sense and you're going to recognize. And again, it just takes a little practice to get to the point where you recognize what's good and what isn't good for you. But there's nothing wrong. And Spirit is, in my life, I've had a rocky life. So Spirit has shared a lot of times with me how, this is not part of your agenda. You don't have to own somebody else's stuff. You don't have to take that in. We have enough on our own plates,
That's true. That's true. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm glad I don't see auras. It's I don't know. I'm sorry, Dean. Go ahead. I know you had another question.
Um, what about trust? I mean, I know
Ooh.
some people, they look like they can be trusted. They sound like they can be trusted. They're very good actors, actresses, and um, they can just talk you into anything if you let them, but they use that, I don't want to call it a gift, they use that type of behavior to con people. Have you learned in these experiences how to spot these people, by just talking to them?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Before my near-death experience, for the first one or any of them, I had a real issue with trust. I didn't trust anybody, and it was just from my upbringing, and that I just had this very cynical way of living. And and then after the near death experience, oh my God, you want to trust everybody, you want to love everybody, you can't live like that.
No.
Because people will take advantage of you. They will walk all over you if I mean. So this is part of that integration. After these experiences, you have to learn to use discernment, and not so much judgment, but discernment. And that's using all your faculties to look at somebody and authentically, And I look at people, are they authentic or are they not authentic? Because I really believe if they're putting on all the, a lot of times when we're in our youth, we learn very early in age to put on these personas. We wear them like cloaks. I want people to see me like this, or I want people to perceive me as that, And so we put on these personas, but when we're doing that, we're not really being authentic. So most of my friends are experiencers these days. Because most of the experiencers the personas have been blown away. I mean, that's the one thing that happens in these experiences is it just blows away all of this persona that you used to carry, and sometimes they're quite a burden to carry these personas. They can weigh you down, and so after you have these experiences, it kind of just blows it all away because you've seen your true being, you've seen your essence. And you want to live from that. You want to live from your truth. You want to live from that, your pure essence, your true nature, and that's being authentic. So you tend to move away from people that aren't living that way. And a lot of experiencers lose friends because they change so much that who they become no longer fits some of the old friend models, you know. And so they take on new friends, and some old friends fall away, that sort of thing. And it's sad, and it's not all at the same time, because I had some really good friends that just don't see eye to eye with me any longer, you know, because I'm not adrenaline junkie Dave anymore, you know.
And so, adrenaline junkie, it happened another time then, third time.
Yeah,
So
one more time, yeah.
the second one was kind of like an out of body experience, but I mean, almost like astral projection type thing, but you were still
Yeah,
grounded
because I was,
in reality. Because
yeah, but I was totally, yeah, I was back in the light and everything. But it was, yeah, kind of like an astral projection, you know.
so the
The
third
third
one,
one was in 2000. I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer that had metastasized into my spine, and it ate away 2.5 bones of my thoracic in my spine, 2.5 or yeah, 2.5 of the thoracic bones. And the tumor was so large, and it couldn't support the weight of my spine any longer, and my spine collapsed. And while I was in the hospital, they found that I had cancer lesions in my hip, my brain, my kidneys. It was in my bones. It was moving very rapidly. It was very aggressive, and they only gave me 8 weeks. And they told me I should get my affairs in order. They weren't even going to treat it. They were going to make me as comfortable as possible, and let me go. And I said no. I could say no to God. I can say no to the doctors, you know, because I'd seen in my life reviews that I was going to have cancer, but I also saw I was going to live beyond it.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't understand was how severe the cancer was going to be. It's kind of funny, and I didn't know when in life it was going to happen, because it's kind of funny. Time doesn't exist on the other side. So trying to come back and what I'd seen of my future, trying to create a plot, you know, a timeline for it. Excuse me. Trying to create a timeline was really, I mean, I just couldn't do it. One of these days, somebody's going to create an app for that, and I'm going to go out and buy it, because
I think you're going to be the one that's going to have to invent it.
You know, because I mean, I just didn't. I had no conception. I knew that there was going to be cancer in my life, but I thought it was going to be like in my doties, you know, much later, not in my 40s. Yeah. So I was a little surprised when it happened, but I could immediately embrace it, because I knew I was going to go through it, because it was part of the purpose. So a lot happened during the cancer. It was another transformational experience in a lot of ways, because after Spirit had to help me get off the morphine and Percocet so that I could create a healing modality to be able to overcome this. And I was able, because I was also at this time, I'd quit my life at sea, but I became a manager of dialysis programs. So I was working within a hospital system, and I was able to talk some doctors into creating a care team for me. And we actually, you know, I made a combination of traditional and holistic approaches. And within 6 months, I was cancer free by listening to Spirit's guidance. And creating visualizations and things like that to be able to heal myself. And so that became part of my future path, is because I do healing work as well as coaching experiencers. That's what I do now for a living. And so there was, like, when I was in the hospital, it was almost like I had another life review, because when I started working in the hospital, it was after my second experience, and I was going through a lot of integration, and I was trying to bring it into my life, and Spirit was sharing a lot with me and bringing it into the workplace as well. And so I'm sitting in the hospital, and the nurses actually had to restrict my visitors because in the hospital I was a manager, and a hospital you have 3 shifts. You have people that work around the clock. And so around the clock, people were stopping by on their shifts and coming in and talking to me, and they'd sit on the edge of my bed. And because everybody knew I was dying, in their reality, I was dying. And in my reality, I accepted, that, yeah, I have this, this prognosis that's pretty dire, but I know I'm going to get past it. Without doubt, I knew I was going to get beyond it. And so they all thought I was in denial, which is, the first stage of a prognosis like that. The Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the stages of grief. Well, that's what patients go through with terminal prognosis. It's the same stages. So the first stage is denial, and you work through the stages until you finally come to acceptance. Well, I came to acceptance right off the bat, but everybody else thought I was in denial. So they were sitting on my bedside, telling me things like, "Oh, you did this, and it showed me this in my life," and things like that. And so it was almost like another life review because they were eulogizing me at bedside, and I was like comforting them. Oh no, I'm not going anywhere. But they all thought I was in denial. So it was
delusional.
yeah, delusional, right?
Yeah.
But it was very, and then there was a lot of spiritual growth that came about during this whole thing because Spirit shared a lot with me during this phase, and there was a lot of things that happened to me during that whole episode that I grew spiritually, and that could be a whole nother show. But
Well, I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it right when I thought it, but I guess I would feel like, okay, so the first incident, I had the first experience. And then you find out you're getting cancer, or you find out you have this terrible cancer. It was like, why are you sending me back? And then, but you accepted it right away. And is that kind of akin to faith? Like over this journey, um, it's faith in the other reality, faith in what will happen. Like, I know your mother was an atheist and that you've experienced different belief systems, but at the bottom of all this is faith in spirit. Is that is that what keeps you going, that you have faith in them, the spirit guides, and your spirit destination? And is that how you would, because basically that's what religions seek to do.
yeah, I think it even goes beyond faith because I know within my heart, because now after the second experience, I really didn't say that I started hearing spirit. Not only was I getting knowings, but now spirit's talking to me. I thought for sure they're going to bring out the white coat anytime, and and so now I have spirit communication where I see, I get visions, I hear. And I still get the knowings as well, and when I do healing work, I actually get some mediumship where I connect with other people's light, and when I connect with their light, I also connect with their guides and their deceased loved ones and everything that are there to help them. So I feel like it's more, I know. It's not that just faith anymore because I work with it all the time. I work with it every day. So it's more of a knowing than it is faith for me. Because
well, let me ask you this question, and this is sort of like a paranormal question. Well, it is. Bernadine and I do a lot of talking about when we show up or when we're online. We talk about spirit attachment and the dangers of it, particularly to people who ghost hunt, go into these spiritual environments, hunting, whatever evidence. Have you ever encountered something like that where, for instance, an addict, a person who dies from their addiction, heroin or whatever it is, usually will linger close to the Earth's sphere to continue that habit. They will resist death. And so before their death, though, if someone like you could have seen, you would see all these spirits around that are in the same condition and are just vicariously experiencing that. Have you ever come across that where, you basically are aware not only of the nascent spirit of the person that is in front of you or that you're talking to or interacting with, but that there are other spirits present and they're not all good?
Yeah, yeah. When I connect with other people's guides and deceased loved ones, you do see that, and because when we pass on, if we're not ready to go into the light and totally integrate and become the totality of our being again, to integrate back to being whole. Mm-hmm. If we have unresolved issues here, a part of us is going to stay here. The greater totality of us always exists in the light, but parts of us can remain here, earthbound. Mm-hmm. And so that is a reality. It's a real thing, and it's and people that are sensitive. Mm-hmm. Can perceive that, people that are sensitive, right. that mediums and that sort can.
Would this be part of like a healing process or something that you help people heal from? I mean, have you ever passed on other spirits? In other words, not intentionally, but in your healing. The transformation of healing, has it released some of these attachments? Because in a lot of cases, they know that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, these spirits. And the danger is that they resist death and they remain fixated on the living. And the real danger comes when other spirits that are so devolved, non-human spirits that are out there, become aware of the energy that's going on right there. It can cause sort of a pollution, and somebody can end up in a possessed state or in an obsessed state with a bunch of spirits that, when it was only one negative intention or negative intending spirits. Is this something you can correct or, alleviate during your energy healings and your time healing the person?
Yeah, I haven't had a client that's been under possession. I've had people, though, that have had unhealthy past lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that fragment of their old self can be just as present today as it was in the past, because, again, time doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So I have had to deal with that, where a past life fragment is hanging on and is creating turmoil in their and addiction and personal crisis in this life.
Right. And for all intents and purposes, to the person in this reality right now, it's a ghost. It's it's something.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. And you could actually think it's your own self from the past, but it could present itself as something
and it
greater.
Can scare, right? You become afraid of it. Either you begin to think that you're hearing voices or something, and it's true. And then not all lives were lived. All of them didn't end well. And then sometimes because we deal. I look at everything basically sort of like through a supernatural lens, and because mm-hmm. supernatural reality is right there, which basically you're underscoring the fact that it exists. And so I wonder about that. I've heard of people who of mediums who can go, if the subject is put under hypnosis and the medium they can interact with what they suspect, the obsessing spirits. And usually they can get them to realize where they actually are. In other words, they say something like, look around you, you're in the light. And then they do, and they simply become aware of their mother or whatever, and then they go. But it's interesting because I just wanted to ask if you perceived it, because like Bernadine says, some people have this aura that is so negative. It's like a mile, like you perceive it before, they're a mile
Oh
away.
yeah.
It's like, oh my God, something wicked, this way comes. And it's all kinds of stuff. Deals with the
Sometimes
devil. Yeah.
it can even present itself before they even get there.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. Like
like a
something
day in
wicked.
advance,
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I mean,
You
Shakespeare
feel
wasn't
it
kidding,
coming. Yeah.
It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's not a storm. And you feel polluted too after you interact with these individuals, But
Yeah.
that I was
Yep.
just curious about that. And it is comforting to know. I think that there's a destination out there. But I'm going to pitch it back to Dean, because I know she's got a couple of questions, and we've got like 10 minutes or so.
I have a couple, but I know you probably won't have time to answer all of them. Whenever you passed on to the other side and you went through your life review, I've heard that when you actually die, you could go to a place called the Akashic Records and see all of your past lives before, you reincarnate again, if that's what, you're supposed to do. Did you get to see any of that stuff while you were on that other side? How do you feel about reincarnation?
Yeah. It's funny. I never really thought about reincarnation until after my experience, but then, but because of the ability to die and come back, oh yeah, reincarnation, that's real.
Mhm.
But the I lost my train of thought. The
Reincarnation and the Akashic
yeah.
record.
Do you
Oh, the
think that
Akashic records. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you think that when we come back each time, we come back with a little piece of the last time and we're going to keep coming back until we get it right? Because I don't want to come back.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, I've I got to spend 3 days with his holiness the Dalai Lama, and he was teaching the way of the Bodhisattva, and I had no intention to, but I took my Bodhisattva vows, and the Bodhisattva vows are I agreed to continue to reincarnate until all sentient beings are enlightened. It's a lot of lifetimes.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
took my vows with His Holiness. I took my Bodhisattva vows with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and my and the funny thing is when I was saying those vows, it was like so familiar. But so it was like, oh, I've done this before in past lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe in past lives, but the Akashic records, I got to have part of the experience I had was I got to go to this place that it was like a canyon. Now I know a lot of experiencers that have touched the Akashic records and have looked at their own book, and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. And then some people that I know really well have gone to the Hall of Records, and there weren't any books, and they were told that you don't need a book, you just open your mind. But I experienced something a little different, where there was this canyon, and I was taken to this balcony that overlooked the canyon, and there was a balcony for everybody. Everybody had their own space. And flowing down the canyon was this river of sound. It was like a symphony. It was gorgeous. And we all contributed our tone to the symphony.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to project my tone into the canyon, and it flowed and it ebbed and it tied with all the other tones that were being contributed by everyone else that had their own balconies and stuff. And it was very much because there was knowledge attached to this sound and this music and everything. And it was very much like the Akashic records. I had this feeling of I could go forward in time and back in time and have the knowledge of everything, going back and forth up and down this canyon. It was kind of interesting. So it was a different type of Akashic record type of experience. But like I said, I know some really cool experiencers that have had some really neat Akashic record, they can read their own book and stuff. Another thing, when I was looking in the future, it was, I'd like to explain that. Just we got a minute or two here.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
It was like looking down, because everything in the life review was crystal clear, because everything I'd done in my life was done. It was a part of reality, of my life's reality. But then when I crossed that threshold into future me, it was like looking down a corridor of potential. And everything in the center part were things that I had agreed to try to fulfill in this lifetime. But, and then if I went down further down that path, things weren't absolutely crystal clear. And the further away to the right or to the left or to up or to down off of the path, because the path was, tubular, like a vortex. And the more that I went to the sides, it became even less clear. But there was potential there. And what I learned from that is that in life here, a lot of times the way we set our intentions, especially heartfelt intentions, that when we set loving, heartfelt intentions, the universe takes that and kind of like throws it down that future vortex of ours and aligns the needs, because all the potentials exist for all of us. It's how we set our intention and our ideals in life that line up the potentials for us, so that we meet this person, and we go down this path, and we do these sort of things. Because I saw a number of things in my life that have come to pass. Like my time with Morgan Freeman, things like that. And I thought, there's no way in the world I'm going to ever meet this gentleman, And then to get a phone call from him saying, I want you to come to New York and we're going to shoot a documentary. And I'm like, oh, okay. Things like that, just the potentials were there, right. But I had to set the ideal that, this is where I want to go.
I found that too. It's when you stop fighting and it's not give in. It's just like you let. And a lot of people say, let go and let God, because it's like you can overwork it and clutter your life up, and never get to where you're going to go. But if you allow things to happen, it moves you forward to where you're going to be. Well, we're down to our last minute here, and that's a pretty good place to leave it. Well, what do you see for yourself in the future? And you're going to continue on this path. I guess what I want to say is, when you leave this life, how do you want to be? How do you think you will be?
When I leave this life?
Yes, when you leave this life and you die. Again, finally, and nobody brings you back.
Yeah. I'm not coming back next time.
Right,
I'll tell
right.
you.
What do you want to bring with you? What do you want to bring with you?
I want to bring a sense. Of that I lived a life in wonder. Because I really think that living a life in wonder, you open yourself up to experience everything in life. You become an explorer in life. Like you were saying, allowing life to unfold, just allowing it to be what it's supposed to be. Well, add that element of wonder to that, and you become an explorer as it unfolds, right. So that you're squeezing all the juice out of life. And that's what I want. When I leave next time, I want my life review to portray that.
Great. And I'm awesome. Pretty sure Well, if anyone out there has these types of experiences and wants to get in touch with you, just tell us where they can reach you and how best you like to be reached.
Yeah, the best way is to go right to my website, which is dharmatalks.com, DharmaTalks.com, Dharma Talks. That's kind of the portal where you can, and then you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, Pinterest. There's links to all of those pages on my, and you can directly message me from the website, or if you're interested in transformational coaching or healing, you can set up appointments on the website too.
Oh, great. That's good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for coming back a second week. And thank goodness everything went smoothly today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great having you, Mr. Bennett. And you really have been a blessing of information. Some things confirming some of the things that we suspect, I don't know if I'm, I think I'm still kind of afraid of the end of it, but I don't know.
Well,
it'll be
thank
my
you for
adventure.
having me.
I sure will.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to break here. And Bernadine and I will be back on the flip side. Thank you, David, and have a great weekend.
You.
Bye-bye.
Ding dong, ding dong.
All right, we're clear. Good. I have to go let my dog out. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Are we playing music? Yes, we're playing music. And we're back.
Hello, everyone. We're back in the Supernatural Substation. I'm Eileen Pistanio, your host, and my co-host, Bernadine LeBlanc, is still with me.
Hello.
Hello.
We're
So
back.
that was we're back. We're back. We're back with
Zeke.
Joe burping. No, that was Joe.
Oh, I thought that was Zeke. Okay.
Zeke is not happy with that. He's like, he wants to be in charge of the sound effects. So anyway, so he was a wonderful guest, Mr. Bennett, and
Yes.
it gives you some hope. But you know me, I'm always the brooder, and I'm
I'll be
thinking,
in your soul group saying, "Focus, Eileen."
yeah, right. You don't know how many balls I've had in the air. It's just ridiculous. No, but it's I know he's had positive experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to take apart everything that I said. No, I mean, I 100% believe him, agree with him, but not everybody has a good life or a pleasant experience, and they end up in the same place we all do. So I'm just kind of wondering. Although I do know, and I have heard and I've read that really evil individuals who are not clinging in some way to their life on Earth, they're segregated from others, others who are not. So that negativity is kept in one place and it's handled, like the angels have their handlers, go handle them, people.
I feel that they do have levels that you have to work up to. I guess different people go to different levels.
Yeah, they do. And they even have, people who have interacted with entities from those higher levels. But knowing that behind the scenes, it's sort of like behind the front, behind the marquee, there's a lot of negative stuff that is churned up and ground down and eaten up in places we will never see, hopefully. I mean, it's just, and it's been that way. It's been called the sink of iniquities, from the beginning of the first thought of, that the creator had to now, and to past our time, it's attracting everything evil to it, everything bad. So imagine how horrible that is. But thankfully we are, in some point segregated. But what he was talking about was a lot like what people describe as having faith in something, without seeing. It's hard. Some people have a hard time with religion and God, etc., because they don't have any visual evidence. They don't believe because they haven't seen. So, and nobody, right. Not a lot of people have the experiences that he had. But it's interesting that he was talking about past lives. In other words, who we were in past lives being present. Basically, I guess we're dragging that all around with us too, and again, not all of those lives are, were lived well. Would you, pardon me, if you hear anything in the background, it's that I have a Doberman Pinscher tearing up a bag that she's not supposed to be tearing up. That's our other sound effects tonight. And you're going to hear an ass beating soon. No. Anyway, I have after, living as long as I have, I had this this realization about reincarnation. I've had regression. I know the lives, especially the one right before I, entered this reality or this life. I can perceive them. I know those things, and I began to think, it's obvious we have to come back, unless you're a really elevated soul. And the reason, this is only my personal view, and it has nothing to do with paranormal or supernatural. Someone made a comment once that basically, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and someone said, do you think Christ went through all of that on the cross just for one life, like to save your one life? And it really struck me at the time. And I realized something. I was like, this is the point of reincarnation. Reincarnation is our inheritance of his action of resurrection. This, again, only my personal belief, that almost in some ways, you can picture Christ, go back, get it right, go back, and get it right. And, in other words, you're moving up. Like you say, there are different levels. You're improving with each incarnation. And what you're doing is, because, the creator, the supernal love is perfect, and we can't join it as an imperfect entity or as an imperfect spirit. We're trying through each of these lives to become, basically to come out of the crucible and be as fine as we can be, to rejoin that. And that's just my feeling about it. The resurrection, because I believe in it. And because I've, like, when we started out this show, I've experienced spirits and magic and the results of stuff. I know that's real. I don't think Christ would die on that cross for just this one physical life for all of us.
Right. And you can tell in babies, well, not babies, but little children.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell. I don't know about other people. I can tell an old soul from a child.
Yeah, from a newly minted, in other words, a newly minted child. Yeah. And it's because the final death, and it's really important now. I believe that we are on the threshold of the end, but the end is not like it's going to happen in 30 years or something. We are serious. This world is in a complete upheaval at the worst possible time, because we have so much technology, so much connectedness that, and we're going to be moving to Mars and the moon. I mean, we're going to be able to destroy our entire universe. This is what's come to us. It's very important now to understand these things, this reality, that other reality is very real. And people say, oh, well, we can be reincarnated. I can get it right in my next life. Or, I don't believe in all that. Well, you better believe, because of this. And this everything that I am saying that has been taught in Christian or Catholic or religious doctrines, Jewish, whatever have you. The final destination, to use that term, of our spirit remains aware, and each of these spirits is unique. But the final destination, if you cannot improve, if you are, I don't know, you're one of these ISIS murdering whatever, and you were that way for many, many lifetimes, and there's just no hope of sending you back and getting you improved in any way, you are exiled forever. David Bennett said, the light is love. It's eternal, supernal. It's just this all-encompassing love. And everyone who's experienced it has said that in the light was love and acceptance. What your fate is, if you do not take it upon yourself to explore this to, the end of the chain and where it goes, and really give, a hearing or a mind to some sort of belief in faith, a leap at least of faith that, we might be right. The end result is that you will be put in a place of complete darkness and complete cold and complete disconnection, shut away from the light of God, from the light of love, whatever you want to call that light. If you are, reprehensibly evil continuously, and all you want to do is evil, you'll be devoured, you'll be eaten by the demons, but you will live in a coffin like you've never understood. I mean, there's no way. The abysmal darkness, the cold, and the complete disconnection, to be cut off from any of that. I mean, the soul group that he was talking about, the guides and the higher guides and the angelic beings, God, to be cut off eternally from Christ and from God. It's real. And Bernadine,
everybody has free will, so anybody
right.
can change.
And Bernadine and I are here to tell you the spirit reality, that's real too. That is real. So underscoring the whole thing, that is real. And we have had objective experiences encountering the reality of that thing in different ways, of that thing, of that reality, you know, in ghosts or whatever, in magic or whatever. We know it's real. So the end result that is hinted about, or basically, you know, everybody thinks it's going to be fire and brimstone. And if you carry that belief to the other side, then, and you believe you're going to hell, you will see fire and brimstone. Now, I don't know, maybe spirits will rescue you, but that end of the line, well, you know, terminus, the end of the line, is a terrible fate, to be completely aware as a spirit being, completely shut out from any hope, any spirit, any interaction forever. Like, you know, it's like we're talking profundity of time. You know, you don't want to end up there. And
it is our purpose to tell you this.
Right, exactly. And there are some things that you can do in life that can, you know, get you a more express ticket to, you know, your final destination. But reincarnation, you know, I think that Christ is there. He died for everybody that died, you know, because people often say, well, what about the people that died before Christ came? Well, you know, they're somewhere, their spirits are somewhere. It is what it is. Before Christ revealed it, it was the same in, you know, in heaven or whatever. And it is what it's going to be, you know. So people like us, they laugh at, you know, and then they run around and they say, oh, you know, look at these ghost hunters and all this other stuff, you know, and they laugh at everything and they say, oh, it's not real. But, you know, after, I think the last few years, I don't know if you feel that, if you feel this way, but, you know, it's more like a hollow laugh, you know, like people laugh nervously, because the more and more evidence that people present of, you know, encounters with the supernatural, paranormal encounters with the supernatural reality, it's not plain as the nose on your face, but some of it is hard to dispute. You know,
some people just walk around in tunnel vision and they refuse to believe in anything that they haven't seen on their own.
Right.
And that's okay. But they have people like us. They have, you know, shows they can watch or whatever, people they can talk to in church. Possession is real. Obsession is real.
Yep.
Addiction is real. You know, supernatural, attachment is real. It's all real.
The demons, they're real.
A lot of people, I mean, some people in my own family, well, I don't believe in that stuff. And that's the end of their story, period. Well, okay, I'm not here to convert you. You know, I'm not a religion trying to convert you. I'm just trying to warn you what can happen if you keep your behavior the way it is.
And, you know, and their spiritual life, you know, where they starve out their spirit. Atheists, you know, I mean, they're walking around with this amazing, you know, this living organism that they are. And they just believe, you know, it just showed up here randomly, our bodies, basically, you know, we're walking around with this miraculous whatever, you know, and they just think, oh, well, it just showed up. And when it dies, it's just going to rot in the earth. You know, well, when was the last time you saw one get up out of the earth and start living? You know, that's the point. What year is it, atheist? So tell me what year it is, okay? Because everything in life is based upon a creator. And, you know, freaking 2017 is based on the, you know, the AD, the death of Christ, or the birth of Christ, rather. You know, so what year are we in? Show me where a little baby got up out of the mud and started to grow and formed itself out of the dust, and, you know, then lived its whole life and then went back to the dust and started all over again. I mean, that's, you know,
what's bad is we have spirit guides that try to, you know, guide us the right way, but the devil on the other shoulder is telling us something else. And a lot of people listen to that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And seek it out, you know, and seek it out. It's, of course, like, it's like you need to know what your enemy is. So, and a lot of people say that to me. It's like, all right, all about this, like occult stuff. And yeah, right. Because if, let's say, I don't know, there was a gang of people coming to kill you. Wouldn't you want to know who the gang was and what precautions to take and all that? People like occultists and paranormalists and investigators that are really worth their salt, like you, can basically tell, well, this is what you're going to encounter and this is what's going to happen based on the fact that eons of people have encountered the same thing. Atheists too. And what I was just going to say is the reason even they shouldn't believe necessarily based on all the positive love and light. They should look at the evil in the world, because there is something driving the evil in the world. The evil in this world is beyond human conception, but we're perfectly capable of doing it on our own. But it's such a master plan that it couldn't have happened randomly. So if you won't believe in heaven and Jesus and light, look at this world and the situation that it's in. You don't see spiritual activity in front of your very face. You don't see the negative. Well, then maybe you're going to end up in that little box, way wherever the hell they're going to store your ass. I don't know.
There's a battle between heaven and hell, and we're between it.
And it's very real. And it's getting to a point, and the conspiracy theories, and I've said this, I guess we've got like a couple of minutes left. I've said this, I was like, these people have to be not crazy, but they have to, they have to be exaggerating. And I begin to look at it and all, and it really kicked me when they started this thing in the political sphere, in news about the Pizzagate thing and the pedophilia. And even that, I was like, this can't be, this can't be this. What is this? But then I saw the magic that was going on. I saw who they were pointing their fingers at, and it was a priestess in the tradition of Crowley, and what she was doing. I was like, son of a bitch, this is real magic, and that is true. And they can laugh all that you want, all that they want to say, but it's all around us, and it's at work in evil in high places, but good, hopefully too. So, but anyway, Joe is telling us night. Before we go, I wanted to mention where our Spars paranormal group is still out there, not my group, but in Mississippi. They have Meet the Spirits of Beauvoir. The next one is coming up on July 15th and August, and then in September, Gulf Coast Paracon, where we will be. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, blah, 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 and at www.ellencostanio.net. And Bernadine, real quick.
It's lspr-society.com and on Facebook.
That's right. So here we are. So guys, we'll be up next week with a monthly roundup. Until then, you have a great weekend. Stay tuned for Miss Kathy Bilski and Quantum Leap. And remember, we are on the iHeartRadio network now. So big things are coming. Have a great weekend.
Night.
I think we're good. We're good.
Yeah, y'all clear. It just took me a minute to get to the headset.
I was like,
man, I messed my elbow at work today. It hurts like a motherfucker. I think I'm about to go to a damn doctor for it.
Oh, God.
That's old age is what this shit that is.
Well, I'm going to be
y'all
guys.
good? Yeah, it's y'all good. The archives probably already posted to Spreaker and or SoundCloud or real close to it.
Great.
So I'll drop it off on the other ones in a few minutes, and away we go into the happy world of archives. And of course, now it is on iHeartRadio.
Excellent.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
Big game.
All right, Dean. Talk to you soon. Bye. All right, Joe. I'm going to head out.
Behave. Stay out of trouble, girl. Stay out of the rain.
I'm so glad you were here this week, thank God.
Yes. No, most of the time I'm going to be here.
We were doing it right until the Skype thing. That's
we're gonna work that out. Actually, what we'll tell everybody when at the meeting is on those particular times they can only have Skype guests, people who are on Skype.
Yeah.
That'll make it'll make it much easier that way. But anyway, go on and enjoy your weekend.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.